Welcome to this week's podcast. You're listening to episode 227 of the Focused Mindset Podcast. And today we're going to talk about focusing our mindset. I'm going to talk about staying on course. We're going to talk about it in two different ways. One is when we feel distracted or when we feel like something that we're called to do just isn't happening. How can we figure out how to stay on course when everything just seems to fall apart like sometimes it does after we set really big goals for ourselves or we put an intention out in the world. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to hone in on conversations. And if you're using the GPS conversation navigation system that I teach, and you are striving to be more solution focused in your conversations, then at some point the battle is going to happen within you where even though the conversation is going well and you're asking questions, all of a sudden you feel a pull to take control of the conversation and begin to just talk or share or move it in a different direction. And I found that keeping the course using the GPS conversation navigation system gets results. And we need to talk about how we can stay on track with that. Because if not, then we make excuses as to why that's not happening. And then we come to the conclusion that, well, I guess that just doesn't work for me. That conclusion, well, it just doesn't work for me. Have you heard it in your life? Have you said it in your life? I know that I have. And then the question remains, was it really the thing that wasn't good for me or work for me? Or was it that I gave up too soon? I didn't put in all the effort that I needed to, that I didn't stay on course. And this is the first thing that I think that we need to ask ourselves, especially when we're really still at the beginning of the year. Many people set their intentions for the new year. They might call it a New Year's resolution. They might just in their mind say, this year I'm going to fill in the blank. And then when the thing that always seems to happen happens, I guess, and then some life gets in the way or whatever reasons happen, and we're not on track towards that goal, then it just makes us feel like a failure. It makes us feel like, why even try? Why am I even doing this? Or other times it makes us wonder, is this even for us? Is this even what I'm supposed to be doing? Why is it so hard? I want to tell you right now that the things that you are called to do, it's not going to be easy. If you're called to something that's a big, important goal, a big, important, just life event that you're working towards, a big, important plan that you have for your life, it's not going to happen just by you getting that vision of it coming to pass. That vision is important because for me, I feel like it's given for a reason. It's like, oh, this could be a possible future of mine. This could be a pathway to where I'm supposed to go, where I'm going to feel fulfilled, where I'm going to feel joy, where I'm going to feel invigorated and purposeful. But every single idea that pops into our mind is not meant to happen, right? I know my mom is known for being like, oh, that's a great idea. You should invent that. When we're coming up with things, she'll always say that we should be inventing things. If it was up to her, I think all of her grandkids would be inventors because she's always telling her grandkids about how they should be the one that discovers something amazing, whether it be, some really cool way to walk across the street even. She'll be like, oh, you should be the one to invent that. But our imagination is also a ground for our planning and making a vision for our future. Anything that we've done, we first thought about first before we do it. We first think about it, and then we actually do it. So I honestly believe that we waste so much time beating ourselves up and struggling with the fact that we make a plan and then it doesn't go just right. And I wonder if that's part of the reason why we get off course, just because we're not willing to start again. And so when we have a big goal and then something doesn't go right, just right, and we don't wake up as early as we wanted to wake up, that was my deal. I was saying, I think waking up early needs to be a thing. And it hasn't happened as much as I wanted because I always wake up early, but as early as I had planned, I've been sleeping too long. And what happens when I sleep too long? Well, then I don't get my time in the morning. And then I don't feel as refreshed and confident walking into my workday. And consequently, I usually don't get as much done. I know this. Still, my comfortable bed just tells me that I need that extra half hour of sleep. So, do I throw out getting up early? No, not when I know the benefits of it. Not when I know that in my own life, some of my best ideas, some of my most amazing plans have come early in the morning. It's when my mind is sharp. It's when I'm thinking clearly. So I don't abandon that plan. I regroup and say, let's start again. So if you are somebody that feels a little off course, maybe you're one of the people that showed up at the gym and then said, forget this, I'm not coming back here. Get back on course. Just choose. I mean, it's not even a matter of me telling you, you need to get back on course. It's something that you have control over. You have control over the things that you do each and every day for the most part. And I honestly believe that we make plenty of time for the things that are important to us. We don't want to believe it. We want to tell ourselves, no, everything is just too busy. We got too distracted on this other thing that was super important. Although these reasons, excuses that we give ourselves for not getting things done are sometimes true things that actually happened. I want us to have the type of focused mindset that's able to also be real and just be honest, not to beat yourself up, just to say, oh, it didn't happen, so I'm going to start again. If we could use that start again over and over and over again, that we start again the next week. And then maybe we get 3 days in of our plan to have a great morning routine, or to speak words of affirmation to the people that we love, or to have stronger, more solution-focused conversations, or to try out a brand new method of counseling if you're a counselor, solution-focused counseling. Maybe it's to read a book. Maybe it's to make sure you apply to new jobs, new opportunities, being on stages, speaking, something that scares you in your life. It really doesn't matter how small or how amazingly large the thing is that's in your heart that you feel that you need to move towards. The question is, are you moving towards it? And when, not if, you take a tumble and things don't work out, do you use that as an excuse to completely derail the plan? Or can you this year say, start again? That means 1 month will turn into 2, 3, 4. And just by continuing to start again, you are going to be amazed at the things you can get done, amazed at the times you can catch yourself if you're trying to have better conversations, or the amount of books that you'll read, or whatever the things are that you know that you need to do this year. It's going to make a difference. And we can do this together. We can start again each and every time and skip the part of beating ourselves up. Just skip it. That can just only sabotage growth anyway. The whole self-talk of saying, oh, you've done this before, the spiraling of the self-talk, right? I have a couple of counseling moments that I want to talk to you about, but one of which is popping in my mind right now is about that spiraling self-talk. And there was one sweet girl that I spoke to who absolutely had a complete breakdown in her classroom over something seemingly simple, just not doing so well in her class. And come to find out, once I sat down with her, of course it wasn't about that one grade. Her mind had began to spiral and think and think and think and think about things to the point that eventually she couldn't even function like she always did in class every single day. When she got a bad grade, normally she's very resilient. So whether it's a young mind or whether we're adults, our thoughts swirling drain us, drag us down. And honestly, it makes it so we can't even function the way that we would normally function well throughout the day. So take those thoughts captive that want to just be straight up icky thoughts. The way that I told this sweetheart that I was counseling is I said, you know what? It sounds like that thought that kept swirling in her mind is just meant for the trash. And we physically just pretended like we were squishing up that entire thought and just tossing it in the trash can. Sometimes it's exactly what we have to do with the thoughts that want to take us off course. You have a course. You are meant to do it. And sometimes there's signs all around you that is exactly what you should be doing. I was put in a situation this month where I've had some amazing opportunities come my way. And they're speaking engagements, exactly what I've been working towards. And I absolutely jumped on those opportunities and said, yes, I accept them. I plan to be there and I'm excited. And then something strange happened. I felt as though I had no motivation to continue to plan and write like I was. The exact things I need to write and plan for is for these events that I've been hired to go and speak at. What in the world? Like, how does that happen? 1 minute ago, I was driven and excited, and now my mind is all over the place. I think the reason why is fear sets in. It's all goes back to our thoughts again, but something inside of me, even though I had to consciously realize it was happening, began to say, oh, whoa, the what ifs started to try and creep in, which stopped my action. So it wasn't motivation at all. Of course, I'm motivated to move forward. It was the reaction inside my brain stopped me from focusing on what I needed to, and rather I was focusing on the fear and the what ifs. Even if it was just for a couple of days, that very thing could have made me think, oh, you know what? This is just too much. No, those emails are a confirmation that I'm moving in the right direction. Those invitations, those people reaching out. When you've been working towards a goal, it's not as if you just work towards a big event and then at one time everything happens. You're going to see the steps forward. As you move, there'll be a step and an open door and an open door. And so when we see an open door, that might be another way that our mind uses to actually stop us from moving forward. Even though we say, yes, we're going to move through that open door, our mind is saying, but should you? But maybe you shouldn't. Maybe it's not going to work out. We got to balance that in our mind. We've got to know that fear has a purpose. It's just trying to protect us to make sure that we do all the things we have to do to prepare. And that's super important because I do some of my best work when everything around me is a little bit uptight and I'm like, focus in. And some people, they'll just be like, the fight or flight makes them want to fly away rather than fight. And I guess maybe the fight is what comes in me when things get stressful. No matter how you react to fear, in this case, I didn't want to fight at all. And I didn't even realize it until a couple of days later. I'm like, why is it that I don't want to do the things that I know I have to do? And I realized that when our mind is thinking in the background about things that might happen or something changed in our life, it's okay. It's okay to say, oh, that happened. Therefore, I wasn't doing the things I needed to progress. And what am I going to do? Start again. I'm going to start again on the focus that I need to focus on, whatever that is, so I am assured that I'm going to get results. Because you know for a fact that when you're moving forward, you're going to get some results. Even if the results are not what you expected, you'll be able to then adjust it and then continue to move forward. The only way we get no results is when we stop completely. So as you reflect upon the goals that you had for the new year and or any other goal that you might have, and if you're like me and you realize that you fell off the wagon a little, you didn't do everything that you needed to do, how about we be kind to ourselves? We skip the talking bad to ourselves and just say, all right, that happened. What's the reason for it? Okay, I notice it and move forward. And that's exactly what we have to do in our conversations as well. If you're like me, you're committed to having conversations where you do a lot more listening and a lot less talking, where you can use the solution-focused approach. And for me, one of the best ways that I stay on track using a solution-focused approach is my GPS, Conversation Navigation System. So really quickly, what is that? It is, I don't know, I'm just going to give you a quick rundown right now. The G stands for gather. We gather information from the person we're talking to without any judgment. Now, what's interesting about this gather phase is that it doesn't have to take too long. If it takes too long, you're probably doing it wrong. Because if people talk too much, they're going to sway over to problem talk. They're going to move to problems. I don't know why that always happens, but it does. And so our job is to help somebody stay on track of gathering information that you need. You're listening carefully because they're going to give you clues as to maybe exceptions to the challenge that they're having, to see how you're supposed to progress in that conversation, how you can guide the conversation. So G stands for gather their thoughts without any judgment. The P in GPS stands for plan their preferred future. Help them do just that. And the S stands for start. And if we had another S, it would be start again. And another S, start again. Because we continuously need to start again on these things. So when someone's talking and they feel stuck, you need to help them start again. Be their cheerleader. Find that open door of the one thing that they can do. Gather their thoughts without any judgment. You'll ask questions such as, what's on your mind? Or, what's the challenge for you? Now, I specifically chose this solution-focused what's on your mind rather than how do you feel. How do you feel brings someone to a totally different place. It's not that we don't want to acknowledge their feelings about a situation, because feelings do give us an indicator of what's going on within us. But the question that we ask is, what's on your mind? I like this because so much of the time, the things that we think about stay in our mind, and it needs to get out. That's the only way that it can then get sorted, and then we can move forward. So ask what's on your mind, rather than how do you feel, or even what happened. What happened can feel as though they want to start to spin a story to their favor to make it seem the best for them, rather than just what's on your mind. And what's the challenge for you? I advocate for these two. There's so many others, but you can start with these two. And then plan for their preferred future. As a solution-focused practitioner, we know that they have many different roads that they can take in their life, but there's a preferred future that if they follow that path, then it's going to always be the preference that's meant for them. And that's what you're helping them uncover by discovering the exceptions in all of the problems that happen in this world and say, oh, but that one time something went well. How did that happen? And then repeat. We want to rinse and repeat the things that are going well so we can have better results. And the way that we help someone uncover this is not only by our listening, which is extremely important, but by asking the right questions. Questions like, what do you hope will happen in this situation? Or what would you be doing instead? If this problem wasn't happening, or if the challenge just poof didn't exist anymore, what do you think you'd be doing instead? Or what would the best version of you do? What would the leveled up version of you do? I use that word a lot with my younger clients because they play video games. If you were leveled up to the next level of life, what would you do in this situation? Now, because of your listening, you should be able to tailor make planning type questions. And you do that by hearing something they enjoyed. And then you say, oh, so what if you did more of, and then talk about what they enjoyed? Listening is a big part of it, but it's not just listening to like take in every word they're saying. You're listening to be able to say, how am I going to use the wonderful things that are inside them to lead this conversation in a direction that could have an amazing result of them making a wonderful change in their life, or just having a new realization, or just feeling more hope instead of feel like I'm telling them things all the time. And that happens with our questions. It really does. And then start to help someone start moving forward. It can be as simple as saying, what do you think you could do? What's one thing that you think you could do to move forward with this? What's one idea that you might have? When they come up with an idea and it's one that you agree it could work, you'd be like, I agree, that could work. That was good thinking. Now, this example of how a conversation might go is not just simply an example. This is reality of how a conversation can be elevated that I've experienced time and time and time again. But when I'm busy and life gets crazy, sometimes I take my little practice sheet that I have actually inside my brain at this point, and I just throw it away and just start freelancing it. And I'm just talking, and I'm missing opportunities to allow people to have a moment of greatness when I take the reins back of a conversation and just do my talking thing, or just not saying anything at all when I should be. Stay on track. Stay on the course of being solution focused. No matter how you progress with your solution focused skills, even if you don't directly follow the GPS navigation system, you need to stay on track of asking questions to say, I am going to discover what their best hope is for their life. And I am going to help them uncover their preferred future that is right there ready for them. And I'm going to believe in their ability to do amazing and great things. And then we're going to get started. Sometimes in the start process, there's a little more words that we can share because we're collaborating, we're working, we're coming up with ideas, right? So I brought a student in recently who I've seen for quite a few years now. And I thought, well, we've talked about everything. I don't know. And it was time, though, for me to keep the course and not just have a quick casual conversation, but use the GPS system. And I decided not only was I just going to use the questions that I know, but I was going to use the exact questions that are on this practice sheet. Keep myself accountable for the training that I give to thousands of people. So I brought this student in, not somebody that I am unfamiliar with. And that's an excuse that I hear sometimes with practitioners and counselors and even parents. They're like, I've talked to them so many times. That's kind of something only for the first couple of conversations. Well, I wanted to test that theory. And I said, what's on your mind? And he said, oh, I feel like nothing's on my mind. I think I've accomplished everything that I want to accomplish. I have friends. I have lots of things I've been doing. Everything's pretty good. And I said, well, has there been anything that's a challenge for you? And he said, well, I am getting a lot of extra help. And this is a kid that has an IEP, and so he gets a lot of extra help out of the classroom. And he said, I've been wondering if I need it because I miss being in the classroom and I miss doing work. I just followed this exact thing. I said, well, what do you hope will happen instead? And he said, well, what I hope is that I can get to a place where I can stay in class and not be pulled out so often, so I can actually hear what they're doing and do the work that my friends are doing in the class. So I realized that he was saying what he wanted to do instead. What he wanted to do instead of being pulled out is be in the classroom more. At that point, I realized that he kind of had just made a plan of action. I said, what I'm hearing you say is that you've done a lot of work to be able to be in class and be able to focus. And you're finding out that you're focusing more in class and that you actually want to be there more often. He said, yeah, I do want to be in class more often. I had to pause right there and say, that's amazing. That's huge growth from a few years ago. And I want to acknowledge that once you were trying to stay out of class as much as possible, and now you see the value in that. What happened? And this is where he was able to recognize his own growth and how far he has come. And he said, well, I just know that I like learning. And I discovered that I don't like missing out. I like being there. This was a huge aha moment for him. And I can almost guarantee you that if I wouldn't have started with what's on his mind and then discovered that his challenge is kind of that he wanted to be in class, and then asked him what would he rather be doing instead, and just what he hopes would happen. To that point, we'd gone through the gather phase, didn't take very long. We went to the planning phase. What do you hope will happen? And then he discovered not only what he would like to happen, but also that he can acknowledge growth. And if someone can see that they've grown, even a small amount, but I think this was a huge amount for this student, they know that they can move forward even further. And that is what happened with this student. He said, do you think that if I keep going in this direction, there might be a time when I don't even need to go to resource? Do you think that if I can go from not wanting to be in class at all to now wanting to be in class, maybe I can get to where I'm understanding things? I mean, he said, I know I don't like math. I hate math, and reading is a little better. And he went on a little tangent about that. And he said, do you think I could? And I said, you know what? I can see that you are moving in that direction. If you've already accomplished this, you can definitely continue to accomplish. And his complete demeanor changed. It was as if the weight of maybe his particular IEP felt like it would just always be that way. He was like, I think I can make that much growth, and I have a little while before junior high, and I am going to work towards that. And then we talked about him being an advocate for himself and talking about how he's enjoying being in class and telling people about it and telling his parents and continuing to thrive. And you know what? This kid knows himself, because when I went to check out his story, as lo and behold, the teacher's like, yeah, he seems to be focusing quite a bit. Now, this conversation could allow him to take the steps forward. I did tell him, like, what do you think you might be able to do about this? And he's like, well, I could tell my mom. She doesn't realize that I really love being in class now. This seems like a small thing, but I know from being a school counselor that this small conversation can have results that are amazing. If I wouldn't have held myself accountable to staying the course, of being a solution-focused counselor, of asking the questions, of allowing him to tell me what's going on, I could have got caught up in asking him about the things that I've heard around campus that he's been going through, or what he did over vacation, or really just never gotten to what's on his mind, and then what he'd like to see in his future. And honestly, I do believe 1,000% that he can move towards that goal. I don't know exactly what will happen, but I know we've taken the steps to move forward. In every conversation, there is a pathway that you can find that can elevate the conversation. Not because you told a better story or everybody laughed, although sometimes we tell stories and people laugh, because the other person that you are speaking to felt hope. You realize the power and the fact that he knew that he could take a step forward towards a brighter future, that he had control of that. I saw the hope in his eye. I've seen that look so many times when someone realizes that they've made progress and they can make more progress and that they can do things to make that happen. Now, his situation so far has not changed. The hope that happened in his eyes was not because we changed something for him. It was because something changed within him when he believed in himself, partly because he saw that I was believing in him. Right? If I would have taken the reins of that conversation and been like, well, you know, the IEP says this, and you have this many hours, and that's the reason you're in there. And you're in there because the test scores have showed that you need help, blah, 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 blah. He could have nodded his head. Imagine he may have said, yeah, I know I need the help. And then he could have walked away with less belief in himself. But instead, I was able to highlight the fact that he has made progress and that he has a goal that's admirable, that he likes being in class and he wants to be in class more. Look, you can use these skills. These are conversation, navigation skills for a purpose. You are the one that's leading the conversation, but you're not the one that's telling people what to do. It seems like a paradox, I think that's the word. Seems like an opposite thing. Well, if I'm leading it, I must be talking. I must be telling everybody everything. But you're leading because of the type of questions you're asking and how you're directing the conversation, not by the words that you're saying, because the other person is in control of that. And wow, when they feel empowered, everything changes. Forget motivation. Who cares if they feel motivated? They might walk away. You'll be like, yes, you should, I don't know, let's use this, wake up early. You should wake up early. And here's all the reasons it's going to make you feel great. It's going to make you feel invigorated. And I could tell people that all day long and they'll be like, not sleep is what I love. Thank you anyways. Never going to happen until they want it to happen. It's never going to happen until it's something that they have within them. And the way that they get that within them is when it's their idea, not your idea. And you're more likely to have them come up with ideas that are going to help them in their life when you ask questions and bring up the wonderful things they've already done and bring up the opportunities that they already wish that they could think of, but it's just kind of like, it's just kind of hiding in their mind. And then all of a sudden they see a pathway. The clouds in their own mind kind of like move and the light is shown on the pathway that they need to take. And that is the moment that hope entered in to the conversation. And our goal should be to allow hope to enter a conversation. We need to allow hope to have a place in our own conversation we're having with ourselves. That's why I always talk about journaling, right? Because it's time that we level up our own talk to ourselves. We can use that same formula. I've done that numerous times this very week to say, okay, I got to gather information about why I'm handling something in a certain way. Then I need to make a plan and then I need to execute it. We need to GPS. We need it for ourselves. We need it for others. So I am believing that the ideas, the plans, the goals that have been put in your heart are there for a reason, and that you do not need to be dragged down by the fact that everything hasn't gone just right. Instead, you can start again. You start again today. And a part of your goal is to have better conversations with people using the solution-focused approach. You're in the right place. That's what we talk about on this podcast. Don't forget to push subscribe or follow. So we continue. And sometimes it's as easy as listening to that podcast. It's going to help you be in the mindset that you need to be in to accomplish these conversational techniques that can seem so difficult because of the habits that we're in. Yes, counselors, I'm also speaking to you. Counselors get in habits that even if they work, they're not working sometimes the best that it can work. And if you have had a calling to level up your conversations with your clients, and now's the time to do it. Stay accountable. Find the questions that you're going to ask. And when you get tempted, ask the questions. And if you get stuck, just ask what else. And then listen a little bit longer. Get yourself back on track. When it's time for you to share some of all the many things that you might have, all the little tools that you have that might help people progress, it will be the right tool that you will share because you've really listened to what they need. You're not just throwing something at it because of what you know, but now you're using your expertise to help them because first you met them where they were. So move forward and have amazing conversations. Conversations with your spouse, conversation with the people that you work with, conversations with your kids that make a difference. It makes such a big difference, you guys. And thank you for listening to this podcast. Until next time, live solution focused.